You know that feeling when you send a message and then suddenly your phone becomes the most important object in the world. You stare at it like it's going to reveal the meaning of life any second now. You check the signal, open and close the chat a few times, maybe even reread what you sent. Was that too much, too short, too emoji? And then as the minutes turn into hours, that little pit in your stomach starts to form. You start telling yourself stories. Maybe they're just busy. Maybe they didn't see it. Maybe their phone died. Or maybe they just don't want to talk to you. We've all been there, in that silent tug of war between hope and self-doubt, watching three little dots that never turn into a message. The truth is, it's such a strangely human thing to overthink silence. We've been trained by this little digital world to expect instant gratification. When someone doesn't reply, it's not just the absence of a message. It feels like rejection, invisibility, or worse, proof that we said the wrong thing. But here's the thing, that moment of waiting, that mental spiral, is exactly where we lose our power. Because we start chasing clarity from someone who isn't giving it, instead of remembering that our worth was never up for discussion in the first place. I want you to think about this for a second. How many times have you texted someone just to test the connection? You wanted to see if they'd respond quickly, if they'd match your energy, if they'd finally give you something that tells you where you stand. But every time you do that, you're playing a game you can't win. Because the more you seek validation from their reply, the more control you hand over. You start shaping your next message around what might get a response, instead of what you actually want to say. You edit yourself for someone who might not even be thinking about you at all right now. And I get it. It's not about being desperate or needy. It's about being human. You cared, you were curious, you reached out. There's nothing wrong with that. What hurts is the silence that follows, because silence feels personal even when it's not. We assume it means something about us when sometimes it says everything about them. Maybe they're distracted, maybe they don't know what they want, maybe they're keeping their options open, or maybe they're just not emotionally available enough to handle even a simple conversation with you. But the point is, their silence isn't a mirror of your worth. It's just a reflection of their priorities. This is why understanding the two reasons they're not texting you back matters so much. It brings your power back. Because instead of living in that anxious limbo of, what did I do wrong? You start to see it for what it is. Either they're not that interested, and that's information, not rejection, or you didn't make it easy for them to connect with you, which means there's something to learn, not something to punish yourself for. But before we get to those two reasons, you have to start right here with awareness, with catching yourself in that spiral and saying, hold on, I'm not going to chase confusion. I'm going to wait for clarity. When someone doesn't text you back, it's not an invitation to overthink. It's a chance to observe, to notice what story you start telling yourself when you don't get the attention you hoped for. Do you go straight to, I messed up? Or do you remind yourself, maybe this just isn't my person? That tiny mental shift changes everything. Because confidence isn't about always being chosen. It's about staying grounded even when you're not. So before we talk about why they didn't text you back, take a breath and remember this: your value isn't measured in response times. The right person won't make you guess, won't make you decode mixed signals, and won't leave you refreshing a screen for crumbs of attention. You don't need to chase the one who goes quiet. You need to keep your energy for the one who shows up. Here's the truth most people don't want to hear. There are only ever two reasons someone isn't texting you back. We make it so much more complicated in our heads, don't we? We create this entire detective story filled with theories, clues, and imaginary explanations. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they're waiting a few hours so they don't look too eager. Maybe they just don't know what to say. We invent all these possibilities because it's easier to believe in mystery than to accept simplicity. But real confidence comes from clarity, not confusion. And clarity begins when you strip away the noise and see that it always comes down to one of two reasons. No hidden third option, no gray area, just two truths that explain almost every "why didn't they text me back?" moment you've ever had. The first reason is simple. They're not that interested. And before you let that sting, understand this. Interest isn't something you earn. It's either there or it isn't. If someone wants to talk to you, they will find a way. No one is ever too busy to connect with someone they're genuinely excited about. We've all been busy, and yet when something matters, we make time. We've texted people from the middle of meetings, from dinner tables, even from bathroom stalls, because we wanted to. So, when someone doesn't text you back, it's not that they didn't have the time. It's that replying wasn't a priority. And that's not your failure, it's just reality. Now, saying that doesn't mean you're unworthy of their attention. It means they're not ready or capable of giving the kind of attention you deserve. People's lives are full of distractions, emotional clutter, and half-hearted connections. Sometimes you just caught them at a time when they're not in a place to be consistent. Maybe they're healing from something, maybe they're chasing something else, or maybe they're just not looking for the depth you're offering. Whatever it is, their silence isn't an invitation to prove your value. It's a signal to protect your peace. But here's where most people go wrong. Instead of reading silence as disinterest, they interpret it as a challenge. They think, maybe if I say the right thing, if I show I'm funny or chill or cool, they'll change their mind. That's when you start shrinking yourself, editing your messages, pretending you don't care when you actually do. You start playing a version of yourself that feels safer, hoping it will get you noticed. But love, or even genuine connection, never grows in performance. It grows in truth, and truth doesn't need to chase anyone. The second reason someone doesn't text you back is a little harder to admit, but it's just as important. Sometimes we make it too hard for them to connect with us. Maybe we come across too closed off, too distant, too available, or too intense too soon. Not because we're doing something wrong, but because we forget that connection isn't just about what we want to say. It's about how we make the other person feel when we say it. Do they feel relaxed around us? Do they feel seen? Do they feel safe to engage, to flirt, to be honest? If someone senses pressure, confusion, or neediness, even unintentionally, they pull back. It's not rejection, it's human instinct. People gravitate toward where the energy feels easy and uplifting. So when someone doesn't text you back, it might not be that they don't like you. It could be that the interaction didn't feel easy. Maybe you were overanalyzing every word. Maybe you were trying too hard to seem uninterested, or maybe you just didn't show enough of your real self for them to feel something genuine. But here's the empowering part. You can always learn from that. If the first reason is about letting go, the second reason is about growth. You can't force someone to want you, but you can become more emotionally available, more present, more confident in how you connect. Instead of asking, "Why didn't they text me back?" ask, "Did I create space for connection, or did I fill it with worry?" That shift changes everything, because it takes the power out of their silence and puts it back into your awareness. At the end of the day, every unanswered text is feedback. Either it tells you, "This person isn't your match," or it whispers, "There's something here you can learn about the way you show up." Both outcomes are wins. One protects your time and the other helps you grow. So when you catch yourself waiting for that text, remember, it's only ever two reasons. They're either not that interested or they didn't feel enough connection to reply, and both are just information, not rejection. What you do with that information, that's where your power begins. Let's talk about that first reason. They're not that interested. It sounds harsh, doesn't it? There's something about those words that hits right where our pride lies. Because when you like someone, when you've imagined how good it could be, when you've already pictured that spark turning into something real, the idea that they just don't feel the same can sting. But here's the truth. You don't need to fear that truth. You need to respect it. Because when you understand it, you stop wasting time trying to turn a maybe into a yes. You stop trying to convince someone to see your value when the right person would never need convincing. Interest isn't mysterious. It's visible. It's in their effort, their tone, their enthusiasm. You know when someone wants you in their world, they make space for you. They don't leave you hanging for days without a word. They don't make you guess whether they like you. When someone is interested, they show it, maybe not perfectly, maybe not always smoothly, but consistently. You feel it in how they follow through, how they ask questions, how they remember small details. Interest has energy. It moves things forward. Lack of interest has stillness. It leaves you waiting, wondering, replaying conversations in your head, trying to make sense of silence. But this is where so many people get trapped. They confuse potential with interest. They think, but we had such a great conversation, or they said they really liked me, or they flirted so much last week. Yes, maybe they did. Maybe they enjoyed that moment with you. But moments don't always translate into momentum. Some people like the attention, the flirtation, the validation of knowing someone's interested in them. But they're not ready to give that interest back in a real way. So when the messages stop coming, it's not that something went wrong. It's that you saw potential where there was never real intention. That's why clarity is freedom. When you stop trying to decode mixed signals, you start protecting your energy. Think about it. How many times have you excused someone's silence because you didn't want to lose the fantasy? You told yourself, maybe they'll come around, or maybe I just need to give them space. And while you're waiting for that, maybe, you're emotionally stuck, investing in a connection that only exists in your imagination. The silence itself becomes addictive. You keep hoping it'll break, that the next notification will be them finally realizing what they're missing. But here's the painful truth. If they wanted to talk to you, you wouldn't have to wonder. Now, none of this is about blaming them or yourself. Sometimes the chemistry is one-sided, and that's okay. You can't control who feels what, but you can control what you accept. The goal isn't to win someone over. It's to find someone who chooses you without hesitation. Because attraction might be instinctive, but connection is a choice. And the people who don't text you back, who keep you waiting, who make you feel uncertain, are simply showing you that they're not choosing you right now. That's not rejection. It's direction. It's a sign pointing you away from confusion and toward clarity. The best thing you can do when someone doesn't show interest is to mirror that energy with grace. Don't double text out of panic. Don't chase their attention. Don't write long messages explaining how you feel. Just take a step back and let their silence speak. If they want to come back, they will. And if they don't, that space they left behind becomes room for someone better to walk in. Someone who doesn't make you question your worth every time you look at your phone. You deserve someone who texts you not because they feel obligated, but because they can't wait to hear from you. Someone who matches your curiosity, your energy, your effort. And when you finally meet that person, you'll realize how peaceful it feels not to overthink every message. You'll see how easy connection can be when it's mutual. So if they're not texting you back, don't chase the quiet, thank it. It's saving you from wasting time on someone who wasn't meant to stay. Their silence isn't rejection, it's your permission to move forward. Now, let's talk about the second reason they're not texting you back. This one isn't about them, it's about you. And before you tense up or take that as blame, don't. This isn't about fault, it's about awareness. Because sometimes the reason someone pulls back isn't that they don't like you. It's that you didn't make it easy for them to connect with you. You might think you were doing everything right, sending thoughtful messages, being kind, being available. But connection isn't just about effort. It's about energy. It's not what you say, it's how it feels to talk to you. We've all done it at some point. We get nervous. We want to make a good impression, and we start overthinking every word. We try to sound cooler, smarter, funnier, or more casual than we actually feel. We wait a certain number of minutes before replying because we don't want to seem too eager. We throw in emojis to make sure we don't sound too serious, and without realizing it, the whole interaction becomes performance instead of presence. The other person can feel it, even through a screen. Because real connection has a rhythm. It flows. It's light, curious, honest. When it feels forced, people instinctively back away, even if they can't explain why. Sometimes it's not about trying too hard. It's about holding back too much. You might come across as distant or uninterested because you don't want to look needy. You reply with short answers, hoping to seem confident, when in reality, you just make the conversation feel like hard work. Or maybe you're overly cautious, trying to avoid saying the wrong thing, which makes it impossible for them to feel relaxed around you. When someone doesn't feel comfortable being themselves with you, even if they're initially interested, they stop engaging. Not because they don't care, but because connection stopped feeling easy. Then there's the opposite side. You might have come on too strong. Maybe you texted too often, opened up too fast, or projected your hopes onto the other person too soon. You felt a spark and wanted to build something real, but they felt overwhelmed by the intensity. Not because you're too much, but because they didn't have time to meet you emotionally yet. Connection grows when both people feel like they can breathe. If one person feels rushed, the instinct is to retreat. So if they've gone quiet, it might not be rejection. It might just be a response to pressure they didn't know how to handle. The beauty of this realization is that it's something you can learn from. Because when you understand your patterns, you gain power. You start texting differently, not from fear, but from authenticity. You stop worrying about what to say to keep someone interested and start focusing on showing who you actually are. You become more playful, more curious, more grounded. You stop chasing replies and start creating connection. The moment you drop the need to impress, your energy changes, and that's when people lean in. Remember, texting isn't about perfection, it's about tone. It's about creating a space where the other person feels good reading your message. If you can make someone smile, laugh, or feel understood, they'll want to reply. But if your messages carry tension, expectation, or fear, that energy comes through and it makes them hesitate. So when you don't get that text back, instead of spiraling, ask yourself, did I show up as me? Or did I show up as a version of me trying to control the outcome? That one question can change your entire dating experience. At its core, connection happens when you make it safe for someone to engage, safe to be curious, to be honest, to not be perfect. When someone feels that with you, they naturally respond. But when the energy feels heavy, like they're being tested, analyzed, or chased, they disconnect. That's not about your worth, it's about the atmosphere you create. So the next time you find yourself waiting for that reply, don't think, why don't they like me? Think, did I make it easy for them to feel something real? Because that's what connection truly is. It's not about trying harder, it's about being real enough that someone wants to meet you there. So now that we understand the two reasons they're not texting you back, this is where the real power comes in, how you respond. Because this is the part that separates people who keep repeating the same pattern from those who finally break free from it. You can't control whether someone replies, you can't make them interested, and you can't force a connection that isn't flowing. But what you can control is how you show up for yourself in that silence. You can decide whether you're going to chase answers or whether you're going to stand in your worth and move forward with grace. Most people give all their power away in this stage. They start shrinking. They reread the last messages, overanalyzing tone and timing, trying to find the invisible mistake that pushed the other person away. They start blaming themselves, thinking maybe they were too much or maybe not enough. But that's the trap. Every time you try to decode their silence, you reinforce the belief that your peace depends on their attention. And that's the quickest way to lose confidence. Confidence doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from knowing that even if someone doesn't choose you, you'll be fine. You'll still be you, still valuable, still magnetic, still capable of incredible connection with someone else. You don't need their response to validate that. In fact, the moment you stop needing it, something magical happens. The silence stops feeling like rejection and starts feeling like redirection. You start realizing that people's behavior is just information. It tells you who's aligned with you and who isn't. And when you start treating it that way, you stop taking things so personally. Think about it like this. If someone doesn't text you back, they've given you clarity. You no longer have to wonder where you stand. They've shown you that they're either not ready or not interested. Either way, that's not your person. That's not a loss. That's a shortcut. You've just saved yourself from months of confusion and emotional guessing. That's something to be grateful for. Because when you stop chasing what isn't right, you create space for what is. When you learn to respond to silence with calm instead of panic, you completely shift your energy. Instead of sending another text to get their attention, you redirect that energy into your life. You go live. You focus on your goals, your friends, your passions. You start being so engaged with your own life that you don't have time to obsess over who isn't matching your effort. That's the energy that attracts the right people. People who see you as complete, not waiting to be completed. You also stop seeing texting as a test. When you know your worth, every message you send comes from abundance, not anxiety. You're not trying to prove anything. You're just expressing yourself. And when someone doesn't reply, you don't crumble. You shrug because you know that your value doesn't fluctuate based on someone's inconsistency. You're not auditioning for love. You're inviting someone to meet you there, and if they can't, that's their story, not your flaw. And let's be honest, people can feel this shift. When you move from needing reassurance to owning your presence, everything about you changes. You become lighter, freer, more magnetic. You're no longer waiting for someone to choose you. You've already chosen yourself. You stop sending energy into dead ends and start investing it where it can grow. So the next time you catch yourself staring at your phone, waiting for that reply, remind yourself your peace is not for sale. You don't chase confusion, you wait for clarity. You don't beg for attention, you attract alignment. Because when you carry that kind of energy, the right person won't leave you guessing. They'll show up, they'll match your effort, and you'll finally see how easy it feels when it's right. The silence won't scare you anymore because you'll know that silence isn't emptiness, it's space. It's space for something better, clearer, more honest to come in. It's space for you to breathe again, to get back to being the version of yourself that feels grounded and alive instead of anxious and waiting. That's what reclaiming your power looks like. It's not about pretending not to care, it's about caring deeply for yourself first. You don't have to play games or follow some rigid set of dating rules. The strongest move you can make is to be authentic. When you send a message, send it because you want to, not because you expect a certain reply. When you like someone, let it show, but don't make their response the measure of your worth. The right person won't make you question your instincts. They'll meet your openness with appreciation, not avoidance. And when someone doesn't, you can still walk away with grace. You can let them go without bitterness, knowing that protecting your peace is more powerful than winning their attention. That kind of confidence is quiet. It doesn't shout, it doesn't chase. It just is. You become the person who doesn't need to be chosen because you've already decided that your value doesn't hinge on someone else seeing it. That's the energy that draws people in. It's the same reason some people seem effortlessly magnetic. They're not out there trying to be noticed. They're just living fully, joyfully, unapologetically. They're not waiting for a text to tell them they're worthy. They already know they are. And when you reach that place, you realize that you were never waiting for someone to text you back. You were waiting to remember your own power. And this is where it all comes together. The reframe that changes how you see the whole thing. Because once you've understood why they're not texting you back, and once you've learned not to chase, what's left is power. Real power. The kind that comes from knowing that you never lose when you choose yourself. The silence that used to sting now becomes your filter. It quietly removes the people who were never meant to stay. That's not rejection, that's refinement. Every unanswered text is just the universe doing quality control on your love life. The biggest mistake people make after all this is trying to fill the silence too fast. They rush to prove they've moved on, to distract themselves with someone new, to show they're fine. But real strength doesn't rush. It rests. It reflects. It asks, what did I learn here? What kind of connection do I actually want next time? Because every time someone doesn't text you back, they teach you something about the energy you attract and the boundaries you keep. You realize that chasing validation never brings peace. It only makes you forget your value. The peace you're looking for isn't going to come from their reply. It comes when you stop waiting for it. When you truly get that, your entire vibe changes. You start walking differently, talking differently, showing up differently. You stop performing and start being. You no longer send messages just to get a reaction. You send them because you have something real to say. You no longer overthink what they might think. You trust that the right person will understand your tone, your humor, your heart. And suddenly, texting becomes easy again. Not because everyone starts replying, but because you're not holding your breath for anyone's response. You're living, and the right people will notice that. When you move through the world like that, you stop chasing, you attract. You attract people who match your energy, who mirror your effort, who don't make you question your place in their life. You attract peace instead of anxiety, presence instead of confusion. And that doesn't mean everyone you meet will be the one. It means you'll stop settling for almosts and maybes. You'll stop begging for clarity from people who only offer chaos. You'll start choosing people who make you feel calm, confident, and seen. The right person won't make you chase them. They'll make you feel chosen, even in the simplest ways. They'll reply because they want to, not because they feel obligated. They'll match your consistency, not test it. You won't have to wonder if they like you. You'll know. And the beautiful thing is, when you finally meet that energy, it'll feel so natural you'll laugh at how much time you used to spend decoding mixed signals. You'll see how love, real love, doesn't make you anxious. It makes you peaceful. So the next time someone doesn't text you back, don't take it as a loss. Take it as direction. It's a quiet reminder to return your attention to yourself. Because when you're living in alignment with your worth, you stop chasing people who make you doubt it. You don't have to send another message to prove you care. You simply keep being someone worth knowing. And that's the ultimate reframe. You don't wait for them to text. You move on, trusting that the people meant for you won't need reminders to show up. One day you'll look back at this and smile because you'll realize that every unanswered message was just pushing you closer to the kind of connection that never leaves you guessing. The kind where silence isn't punishment, it's peace. The kind where you don't check your phone wondering if they care. You already know they do. That's when you'll understand that the ones who didn't text back never really mattered. They were just the noise that helped you recognize the signal when it finally arrived.